Hey guys, so pretty often I'm asked for recommendations on sharpening systems, right? And instead of repeating myself over and over again and having these conversations, I think I decided it's time to finally make a video series regarding the topic, right? So, with that said, today we're going to go ahead and cover the KME, and I'm going to tell you whether it's good, it's bad, basically where it stands in 2023. Does it still hold up? Let's find out. Hey everybody, Jordan from Shops and Stones here. And as I said in the intro, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at the KME. We're going to see how it holds up in 2023 versus something like the TS Prof or Halfstone. Let's go ahead and get into it. So KME was invented around 2006. Now, I don't know if it was in this exact format at that time because their original sharpener was invented to sharpen broadhead arrows, right? And I believe it was just a clamp that had some kind of post that allowed you to dictate your angle on a sharpening stone. I was unable to really find what year the KME existed in its current format, but I know it's been a while, right? At least 10 years. And with that said, the design hasn't changed very much over the course of the 10 years. And that's because it works. It's tried and true. Now, one great thing about KME is they take a lot of pride in being USA made. Not only USA made, but USA made at a competitive price point. This system without the base plate here, so just this as you see, with diamond plates ranging from, I want to say 80 grit to 1500 grit, runs you about 200 bucks, okay? That is fairly competitive in today's market. And at KME, they stress on their website, not only is it American made, the parts are American sourced, right? It's all American labor. Like, they're very, very proud to be made in America. And I love that. You know, I'm a proud American as well. So anytime I can get a chance to support an American made product, I'm definitely going to do that, right? So kudos to Ron and team at KME. You guys are fantastic for that. Other than that, I haven't been able to find much on the history of KME. It seems like, you know, Ron chooses to remain a little bit more private. The only other thing I really know is that they have excellent customer service. Everything I've seen on the forums is that, you know, they'll go above and beyond for their customers. Funny enough, I was just actually talking to a guy on Facebook who had his cat somehow destroy his KME, and no fault of the manufacturer, but KME is going to help him out and, you know, source the parts that he needs to either rebuild it or, you know, get him a new one if need be. But that's fantastic. KME is awesome. All right, guys. So as I said, the KME was invented in 2006 and has stayed fundamentally the same. Yes, they've added a few things to kind of adapt to needs as people have expressed their needs over the years. But even in the last 5 years plus, I haven't seen any new parts or accessories made for the KME from KME directly. So the main design of the KME is what you see here. Okay, you have a pistol grip handle, you have a clamp, you have a stone carrier and a guide rod, okay? The guide rod actually screws into the stone carrier as you see here, okay? And I believe they just do that purely for storage, right? Then you have a little, you know, I don't even know what you would call this. We call it just a guide rod stopper, so you can't go past the edge of your knife, right, when you're sharpening. And you can adjust that as far back or forward as you need to. And not only that, their clamp is one of a kind. It actuates in a way that I can't even explain because I'm not an engineer, but it allows you to clamp even distal tapers full flat grind. And what I mean by that is when you have something like a Spyderco, you know, you have the distal taper, which means it gets thicker at the, you know, rear of the knife and comes to a skinnier point. And then obviously a full flat grind means that the knife is fully ground from, you know, top to a leading edge, cutting edge, right? So it's a full flat grind. There's not a flat surface for this clamp to clamp onto. But Ron at KME figured out a way to allow this clamp to actuate where as long as you pinch this clamp correctly, you know, when you're tightening it down, the clamp will adjust and allow you to get equal pressure on every point of a full flat grind with a distal taper. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's a killer design. I don't think anybody else has been able to develop a clamp quite like this. So that is ingenuity at its finest, and probably the best thing about the KME system is its single clamp. So now that is, again, what I said is the base KME. Now we have a couple add-ons here, and the very first add-on, which I deem to be practically vital, is going to be the base. And obviously this is just a little rod for the base. All they did was literally drill a hole in the bottom of the pistol grip here, which allows you to set this system down, and now you can have a more fixed structure to sharpen on. Now, I think that's because nobody really wanted to sharpen their knife like this per se. It's kind of awkward. This just makes more sense. And rather than go back to the drawing board, you know, and redesign the whole system, they just came up with a solution. And as you go along and you take your journey into the KME, you know, ecosystem, you'll notice that that's something that they do. They don't reinvent the wheel. They just figure out how to modify their device to make it work. Another example of KME kind of, you know, finding a way to modify their system rather than reinvent the wheel and reinvent the entire system is the stone thickness compensator. Now, the stone thickness compensator essentially allows you to compensate for different types of stones. As KME grew more and more popular, more brands started making more stones for their system. And those stones were different thicknesses. And when you have a different thickness stone, it changes, you know, the overall height that you're sharpening at, thus changing your angle at the edge bevel. So what you do is pretty simple. You find your angle and you sharpen with your first stone, okay? When you're done with your first stone, you take it out of the stone carrier, and then you basically put it up right against the bottom of the edge guide here, and then you put in your stone thickness compensator and you try and get it as high up as you can to where it's flush. Everything's sitting flush, right? And then boom, your stone thickness is determined. Now you never move the stone thickness compensator. That's your baseline, right? You pull it out, and then your next stone or your strap or whatever, you will put that on that ledge, and you will adjust your angle guide, and boom, now you've compensated for the stone thickness. And again, rather than reinvent the wheel, they made it work. It's nowhere near my favorite implementation of stone thickness compensation, but it gets the job done. My only gripe is it's not always as accurate as you would like it to be. So that's the overall design of the KME. Again, this is a tried and true sharpening system. People have done thousands, if not tens of thousands of knives on KME systems and had a lot of success with it, right? So again, pretty straightforward. You can't go wrong with this system. All right, now that we've seen kind of generally how the system works, let's go ahead and get into some pros and cons. My very first pro, and the biggest one to me, is that it's made in the USA with all USA parts and all American staff. Like, phenomenal. Great job. My next pro is going to be the clamp. Again, I said it earlier, this clamp is one of a kind, and I wish I had the engineering, mental fortitude to explain this properly. I think if you YouTube it though, you can find other reviews on the KME that do thoroughly explain it. I can't even try. My brain can't comprehend it just by looking at it. I have to see in order to understand it. I can't see how this works, but I know it works phenomenal, and it's a 10 out of 10 for a single clamp, right? Another pro, and this is going to be subjective, is going to be the fact that you can rotate it. See the video here? You can rotate it as you sharpen, meaning you don't really have to, move your guide rod except for front to back, top to bottom, essentially, right? And you can rotate the system and just kind of follow the edge of the knife, which I really like. Not any other system I've used has this capability, but this one does, and it's just something small that I like. Again, this is a very subjective pro. All right, so another pro is that you get a free case and it leads to the other pro, portability. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 special there. The KME is so small and disassembles into basically, 4 main pieces: your stone carrier / guide rod, your base, and the actual system itself. Now, the case that KME gives you isn't really like the best. The cutouts aren't the greatest, so you kind of just have to force it all in there to make it fit properly. But that doesn't change the fact that you can't carry this whole system along with stones, with you just about anywhere in a small case that you could even fit in a backpack. It's, pretty good. If you ever go like visit family in another state and they know you sharpen knives, which happens to me all the time, taking something like this with me is very feasible. Where you have systems like the TS Prof or, the Halfstone that are much bigger in size, you're not packing those up into a little case and taking it with you. Not easily anyways. So, with that said, I think if you watch my video here with the Kaizen foam, you'll be able to maybe make some better inserts for the KME and make that case a lot more tidy and organized. So if you do that, please tag me on Instagram, DM me on Instagram. I'd love to see what you guys come up with on that. Now, my last pro is optional because you don't have to get it with the KME, but that is their diamond stones. Their Gold Series diamond stones are phenomenal. Personally, they're my second favorite that I've used. Now, I haven't used the Toma diamond stones and I hear really good things about them. So one day I will try those and report back. But I've tried just about every other diamond stones for a guided system. And the KME happens to be my second favorite. They are very heavy duty and they last forever. A big complaint when the KME was in its younger years is that the 4-inch DMT stones that they were using just weren't holding up. They weren't lasting very long. So again, Ron went back to the drawing board. He found a manufacturer to make custom diamond plates for him. And those diamond plates, I don't know what kind of secret sauce they put in them, but they last. They last a very long time. And once they're broken in, they leave a pretty good finish. I'll be the first to admit though, when you first do use them, they are very, very aggressive, more aggressive than I like for sure. And they take longer to break in, but that's also what kind of contributes to them lasting so long. So yes, you deal with some coarser edges than you'd probably expect at first, but I promise you, these things would easily do hundreds and hundreds of knives before they wear out. So again, great stones. Now the first con is subjective, right? But it is large knives. If you want to do a large knife on the KME, it can be done. It's just tricky and requires more work than I feel is necessary, especially compared to a modern system, right? So it's not that it can't be done, it's just more of a pain than it needs to be. Anything above, I'd say 6.5 inches, you're probably gonna have to, make some accommodations, whether it's clamping the knife in multiple different positions and sharpening it in sections, or angling it really weird and doing your best to find, the money clamp setup. It's not worth it to me when I have other systems that can handle those larger knives with ease, right? So that's the first con. My next con is just the fact that this system has not really been updated in years. And the industry has really evolved. There are so many other things that these new systems offer that the KME does not. And we'll kind of go through them as we list more cons. The very first one will be reclamping. Now, while KME does have the best single clamp in the market, there's still things that this clamp will not handle. And that's where modern systems come into play, and they have endless clamping variations. You can do a center clamp with 2 side clamps, you can do 4 clamps, you can just do 2 side clamps. There's endless variations. Almost too many. It almost makes your head hurt, not gonna lie sometimes. but the vast majority of the time, you can get away with a double clamp setup or a single with 2 clamp setups, or sometimes just a single clamp setup. So as long as you know those 3 with other modern systems, you're pretty much good to go 99% of the time. But the nice thing is you have that versatility, right? KME doesn't offer that, and that's why it's a con. My next con, I think, frustrates me more than other people, but that's just the stone thickness compensation. So I was never a fan of the stone thickness compensation here because it's kind of jiggly, it kind of moves fairly easily, thus making it not very accurate. And when you're doing guided system sharpening, accuracy is everything. So if you're off by 1/4 of a degree, especially on a finer grit, when you get up to the 2000 grit range, you're not really removing much material at that point. So if your stone thickness compensator moved and now you're not hitting the apex of your edge, you're wasting your time at that point, So thus, having a good stone thickness compensator, especially with some of these modern stones out, is vital. And KME's implementation is just kind of lacking. The next con I have is going to be a big one, I think, for almost everybody, and that's lack of consideration for angle cube. Now, the angle cube is really not a good pairing with this system. Now, if you look at my stone carrier here, you see there's a little modification, and that's a little row of magnets here, right? And those magnets are thrown on there for an angle cube. But even then with these magnets, it doesn't work very well. And it can be quite frustrating from time to time. So if you didn't have these magnets on here, you zero your angle cube right here on the base, you set your stone and stone carrier on the knife, and then you stick your angle cube on there. Now you see a problem even when just with the stone carrier. Just the weight of the stone carrier, this thing slides. Even when there's a knife clamped in there, it will slide off. You add the weight of the angle cube, then it slides off even quicker. Now you could say, okay, well, hold the stone carrier on the edge bevel and then hold the angle cube in place. And yeah, I'm sure that's what most people do, but realistically, you're throwing off your angle by 1/4 of a degree or 1/2 a degree sometimes unintentionally by either putting too much pressure, slightly lifting off, angling the stone carrier just a hair. Again, guided system sharpening is precise. So if you're off a little bit, you're kind of throwing your whole edge off just by a hair, and sometimes it's all it takes to ruin a potentially great edge. Again, people have figured it out, they've done it, but on modern systems, it's implemented better. So it's in the cons list. Another one that's huge for me, I think I care about this more than most other people do, but that's stone carrier parking. All right, and what I mean by that is, say I'm sharpening along, right, and decide I want to get a drink of water. Well, when the knife is in the system, you can't really put it there like this, and there's a stone in there, so it's not going to really catch anyways. So you either have to take the thing all the way out and set it down, and then put it back in when you're back and ready to sharpen, which can be annoying sometimes. And then you have to, put your rod stopper back on, where modern systems have some kind of hook or way to park this stone carrier to where if you want to take a break, you just put it like that or hang it off to the side and boom, you're taking your break, you come back to work, you just lift it up and get back to work. Now there are aftermarket, guide rod parking systems out there for the KME. They're not terribly expensive, no, but I had one and it was a 3D printed, cheap one, and it broke. And that's frustrating, right? Where most modern systems kind of have something built in. They considered that fact already. They rectified it. So that's, again, a subjective con, but a huge, huge con for me. It drives me absolutely bonkers with this system. My next con is going to be the blade rotation. I don't think the blade rotation on this system is all that great. It is adjustable, but it's just not very smooth. Like, if you want to make it more smooth, you can loosen it up here in the back, But then the problem is if it's too loose enough to the point where it's where I like it, when I'm sharpening, if I put just a hair too much pressure, the knife will just flip on its own. And again, small subjective complaint, but it's valid because on modern systems, that problem is addressed, right? So a con nonetheless. Another con I have is just the overall sturdiness of this. This kind of feels cheap. And that's kind of frustrating because it is an American-made product. And when I think American-made products, I'm thinking sturdy, robust, you know, these really strong products. I think of like a, you know, 1980 Ford pickup truck that's just built to last, forever made, right? Where this will last you forever, don't get me wrong. It rattles, it's kind of loose, it's kind of shaky, it doesn't feel robust. When you handle a TS Prof or a Hapstone, that feels robust. Like you're so impressed with the build quality. Where here, it works, but it's not what you're expecting from a US made product. Now, my very last con, and you'll notice these cons are almost all subjective, but this con for me is the fact that it uses 4-inch stones. Now, while there is a wide variety of 4-inch stones, I just don't like the length. It's not about what stones are available. It's just, I like having the 6 inches of real estate to sharpen with versus just 4. It feels, I don't know, it just doesn't feel comfortable to me. I like the extra 2 inches, right? Now, I didn't put the variety of stones as a pro. I didn't do that for a reason, because it's not really any different from the Edge Pro series. Edge Pro 6-inch stones, there's just as many, if not maybe even more stones available for that setup than there is for the KME 4-inch stones. So I can't really mark it as a pro, but it should be known there are plenty of stone options out there for 4-inch stones. And if you do mess around with those different stones, again, stone thickness compensation comes into play. But if you are doing larger knives, you are going to want that extra stone real estate, and you can buy an adapter that, you know, kind of changes out your stone carrier here and allows you to use 6-inch stones, but that is aftermarket. It's not from KME. And again, the system just being as small as it is, you don't really get to use the full 6 inches anyways. So it's almost a waste of money, but some people still do it. And I think that's going to wrap up my cons. If I missed anything, don't be afraid to leave it in the comments. Same with the pros. You know, I'm doing my best here. I haven't actually used this system in quite a while, just because, again, I have the modern systems and it does much more for me. So I may be a little rusty on some of these, but hey, I'm just trying to give you my honest feedback. I've purchased every one of these systems with my own money. I've had an Edge Pro, a KME, a TS Prof Cadet, a Hapstone RS, and you know, I'll probably plan on buying more just to review for this channel to inform you guys and help you guys make the best decisions on how to spend your money, because these systems are not cheap. So yeah, that's all I have for pros and cons. Let's go ahead and get into the overview. All right, guys, so the KME has really paved the way for a large number of these sharpening systems out there. Without the KME, who knows where the guided system market would be at, right? However, again, I just can't get past the fact that it hasn't been updated in a while. Again, it is tried and true though on that same note. Like, there's plenty of people who still use it on a daily basis and do a fantastic job with it. But the way I kind of see it, it almost reminds me of like that uncle who has that old pickup, right? Who has maybe 250,000 miles on it. It's like a 1989 and the AC still works, so it's not uncomfortable in the summer, you know, but it just doesn't have the modern features that a newer truck has. So you're not getting, you know, the fancy backup cam or, you know, the nicer AC or the smoother ride, right? But his truck is still getting him from point A to point B, so he doesn't see the need to upgrade. So I kind of equate that very much to the KME. If you have a KME and you're getting great edges out of it, do I suggest you upgrade? Probably not. if you're getting into the market and you're trying to buy it, would I recommend that truck to you? Would I recommend the KME to you? Probably not. I would probably recommend, the TS Prof Cadet or Hapstone RS, and that would be like recommending a 2022, Chevy Duramax with all the bells and whistles, right? And the crazy thing is the prices would almost line up. It's like buying that 1988 Chevy pickup or whatever for the same price as this 2022, Chevy pickup with all the bells and whistles, right? So it's like, if you can get something for the same price that has more bells and whistles, why not do it? That's the way I see it, right? Whether that's a good analogy or not, I think it is, but you kind of get the idea of where I'm going with this. I will never say the KME is a bad system. I just think there's better systems out there. So at the end of the day, in 2023, does it hold up? Technically, yes, it does. It does hold up. Would I recommend you buy it? Not if you already have a system. If you find a used one for a good deal, sure, but other than that, I wouldn't suggest going out and buying it just straight up from a retailer if you can spend the same amount of money and get a better upgraded system. I don't want to say better, I want to say upgraded, because the KME is a good system. And again, huge respect to Ron and everybody at KME for the solid customer service. And if American made is very important to you and you only want American made, then KME is the way to go. If you don't mind something from, over in the European continent, then TS Prof or Hapstone is probably going to be the way to go. With that said, I think that covers everything on the KME. If you guys have any questions, don't be afraid to leave comments. I'm always available on Instagram. You can direct message me. With that said, we're going to go ahead and end this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you share the video, it really helps out the channel. And that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks.